Welcome to The Point. I have a series of 4 very interesting subjects to discuss with Derek Walker, pastor of Oxford Bible Church. And today we're going to be talking about the imminent invasion of Israel. So let me introduce you straight away to Pastor Derek Walker. Derek, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. It's good to be here.
And we've got 4 shows to do on end times.
Excellent.
And I especially wanted you to do them because we all appreciate that you have a lot of knowledge on this particular subject. Derek, move straight into it. What do you think could be the next major prophetic event to be fulfilled?
Well, Richard, thank you. I'm sure that one of the events, if not the next one of the ones that is going to happen very soon, is what I call the imminent invasion of Israel. I think everything is ready for this to happen. And it's a prophecy that's in Ezekiel 38 and 39 that describes when Israel has been gathered back from the nations, which is really Ezekiel 36, then a dramatic divine intervention is going to happen because there's going to be an invasion from the north. And we're going to have a picture up in a few seconds that will show that it says from the far north, and from Russia really, and there'll be a coalition of nations with them, like involving Turkey, involving Iran, involving Sudan, Ethiopia, and all these nations will converge on Israel like a cloud and cover Israel, and it will seem like all is lost. It will be a surprise attack, and then God was going to step in because he says, these are my people, this is my land, and God will bring those invading nations into judgment. And it will be one of the greatest divine interventions of all history. And God will save Israel. And it will be a catalyst for a great revival. And so this event could happen because I believe all the politics involved, all the nations that are listed as being the attackers, and all those who speak against the attack, line up very well with present conditions. So I believe it's going to happen soon. And that's why I've written a book on the subject, and I called it The Imminent Invasion. If I can maybe show it, The Imminent Invasion of Israel obviously goes into more detail of what we can talk about today. But I believe that Christians need to be ready for this.
Excellent. Well, I've read that book. It's absolutely excellent. So let's talk about that word imminent. Talk about imminent.
Well, the word imminent is an interesting one. It's almost like something that could fall on you at any moment.
Right.
Something that could happen suddenly, without warning. In other words, there's no reason to think that it's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years' time. It could happen at any time. That's what the word imminent means. And when I felt this was imminent, in other words, all the ducks are lining up, then that's why I said it's imminent. It's not just soon, but it could happen at any time.
Right.
The reason why I thought it was imminent, well, we know for Iran is aligned against Israel. We know that Russia, given the right reasons also. And Turkey was the key thing, because for a long time Turkey was an ally with the West. Right. But recently Turkey has turned against Israel. Right. So all the nations listed as being the attackers of Israel, mostly they're Muslim nations, and mostly they're nations that we could say, yes, we could see that happening today. Right. And the other reason that it's imminent, in fact, if we show another picture right now, we'll see how these invading nations, again, correspond to political entities today that have reasons to attack Israel.
Right. Excellent. So let's move on then. So this imminent business, that means the invasion of Israel could happen like soon, like in our lifetime.
Exactly. Could happen, next year. Who knows? And another big reason why it's become imminent is because of the recent oil and gas discoveries in Israel. Right. In fact, if we show our next picture now, I'm sure you've heard of it in the news. Massive oil and gas discoveries in the Mediterranean just off Israel's coast. Right. And the reason why it fits with the prophecy is that it says that God puts a hook in the jaw of these invading nations, and in particular the nation called Rosh, or Russia, in the far north. And the hook is that they come for spoil. Now you might think, what does Israel have in terms of spoil? But now Israel has come into a game-changing amount of energy supply.
Right.
And Russia's whole economy depends on her control of a large energy supply.
Yeah, sure.
And therefore she has a lot of reasons for spoil to take Israel and control that energy supply for her own economy's sake. And that's just happened. And it's interesting, it's a fulfillment of prophecy, because if we look on our next picture, there's an amazing prophecy in Deuteronomy 33:24 that indicates that Israel does have oil hidden away. Right. It says, when it does the tribal boundaries, the tribal prophecy in Deuteronomy 33, it says, of Asher, he said, Asher is the most blessed of sons. Let him be favored by his brothers, and let him dip his foot in oil. And actually, in the 70s, I think, they looked for oil in Asher. Now, if you look in the picture, the tribe of Asher there in yellow is shaped like a foot. And its toe is sticking into the Mediterranean. It's kind of around Mount Carmel area. And so it doesn't say that there's oil on the land of Asher, but he dips his foot in oil. In other words, the oil's in the Mediterranean, just off the coast of Asher, and that's exactly where they discovered these oil fields.
Isn't that amazing?
And now, you see, given the right political excuses, Russia would have a lot to gain by taking control of those oil reserves. And of course, the allied nations, which are mostly Islamic, also would have their own reasons, according to their beliefs, that Israel should be finished.
Good. So if you've just joined us, we're talking about an imminent invasion of Israel. Derek Walker's talking about it. And imminent means it could happen very soon, even in our lifetime. So do pay attention. I'm paying close attention, because this is a game-changing event which could happen in our lifetime. Can you imagine what it would be like if Israel was invaded by all these surrounding countries? Let's move on now. Just to add to the whole idea of imminence, I think you want to say something about the blood moons.
Well, yes, it's interesting to me that, and again we'll see these in a picture, that something dramatic is going to happen next year and the year after. There are some blood red moons coming up on the Jewish holy days, at Passover, and then at Tabernacles in 2014, and then again the following year at Passover and Tabernacles. We have these 4 blood red moons, which is an unusual event. And interestingly, whenever this kind of alignment has happened before, because the moon represents Israel, and so the blood red moon signifies some important event connected to Israel. And whenever it's happened before, around the time of 1948, around the time of 1967, these events happen. And of course, in both occasions, Israel was under threat, under attack, but God came through and delivered her.
Sure.
And also it happened in 1492, which was the time of the Spanish Inquisition, and the time when Columbus discovered America. And both of those events affected the Jews particularly, and they also brought about a great deliverance in the end, because America would prove very important for the Jewish history. So it seems like whenever there are 4 blood red moons, it signifies something very important for Israel, but also that God is going to do something dramatic. And that's coming up next year. So that could be, I think, that it's not talking about the rapture or anything like that, but I think it's talking about an attack on Israel. And so it could be next year, who knows? So
that is going to be happening 2014-15, is that right?
Exactly.
I think you've got a picture to show us, is that right?
Of the moons. They've probably been showing that picture already, but please show the picture of the moons if you haven't already. Right. And so I believe that it truly is imminent.
Good. So let's talk about the invasion. Do we need to talk about the invasion now, or should we wait until it happens?
Well, I think we need to talk about it now, and that's why I wrote my book, because we need to be ready.
Right.
The reason is that the prophecy says that God will intervene and God will glorify his name. If I could read a scripture in Ezekiel 38, after God has intervened, he says this in verse 23, "Thus I will magnify myself, and I will sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations. Then they, the nations, will know that I am the Lord." And in chapter 39, verse 7, he says, "I will make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel, and I will not let them profane my holy name anymore. Then the nations will know that I'm the Lord, the Holy One in Israel. Surely it is coming, and it shall be done, says the Lord God." And so what he's saying is that God will demonstrate through this divine intervention that the God of the Bible, the God of Israel, is still alive and very well, and many in the nations, there will be a revival in the nations, because God will declare, it will be such a supernatural thing, that many in Israel will turn back to God, many in the nations will turn back to God, and they will realize that the God of the Bible is alive and well. And therefore we will have a window of opportunity to share the gospel, and there will be a great opportunity for revival, because people will be open, because what was prophesied will come to pass. So we do need to be ready.
So fulfilled prophecy actually, on television screens.
It'll
right
be one of the most stunning fulfillments of prophecy.
Amazing. Yeah. So who actually are the invaders actually?
Well, if we go now, and if we see the next picture, and if we go to Ezekiel 38, it tells us in the first few verses, it says, "The word of the Lord came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog," is the name of the leader. Gog is the leader of this invading army, "of the land of Magog." And the land of Magog is now the Scythian Empire was kind of the southern Russia and the satellite USSR states, and even including parts of Turkey. Then it says the Prince of Russia, Meshesh and Tubal, and again it could Russia, Turkey area, and prophesy against him, and it says, "Behold, I'm against you, O Gog, the Prince of Rosh, Meshesh and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks in your jaws, and lead you out with all your army." It says, verse 5, Persia, that's Iran, Ethiopia, which could also be Sudan, Libya are with them, all with shield and helmet. Gomer, it talks about Togarmah, that's areas of Turkey. From the far north, it says, that proves it. We're talking about Russia. The far north of Israel is Russia. And it says, many people with you. So there's this invading force. And the key ones are Russia and its satellite state, the former Soviet Union states. Right. Iran, of course, and Turkey is heavily emphasized. And others too. So those will be the primary invaders. Right. If we could show the second picture as well, gives you another viewpoint of these invaders. It's a complicated study to deduce all of these, but all the information's in the book.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I am right, is that Moscow is actually due north of Jerusalem.
Exactly due north.
Exactly due north, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, you look on the map, it's just right due north, isn't it?
Right due north.
So there we are. So, Derek, where actually do these countries invade?
Well, it's, again, if we're in the prophecy in Ezekiel 38, verse 7 to 9 tells us. He says, God is speaking to Gog, and he says, in the last days, verse 8, "You will come into the land of those brought back from the sword and gathered from many people on the mountains of Israel, which had long been desolate, that were brought out of the nations, and now all of them dwell securely." So in other words, it's Israel, the land of Israel, but it's Israel having been regathered from the nations. So it's after 1948. They've been scattered to the nations, they've been regathered again, and in that time frame, this army now attacks. Excellent. So that fits the present situation. And it says, "You'll come like a storm, and you'll cover the land like a cloud. It will seem like all is lost for Israel."
And moving on, so we got that part of it, where they invade, but so why do they invade?
And we mentioned this already, and then what it says in the next verse, it says, "It will come to pass that thoughts will arise in your mind," speaking of the invader, "and you'll make an evil plan. I'll go up against the land of unwalled villages to a peaceful people," because Israel does not want war, it wants peace, "who dwell safely or securely, which we know is true. You know, the Israeli have one of the best militaries in the world. And it says, to take plunder and to take booty, verse 12. To stretch your hand against the waste places that are again inhabited, against a people gathered from the nations who have acquired livestock and goods, who dwell in the midst of the land, in the midst of the earth. So they've come for spoil. They've come for wealth. Now, they will pretend that they're coming probably as liberators, you know, as a coalition force to liberate maybe the Palestinian people or whatever, but their real reason is for spoil. And then the objections come from Sheba, Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish in verse 13. Now, Sheba and Dedan is Saudi Arabia, who are presently allied with the West.
Yes.
Tarshish is the Western powers.
Right.
Could Spain, Britain, America, could be Tarshish was the Western powers. So here again, the political alignment is that the West will object, and they will say, "Have you come to take plunder? Have you gathered your army to take booty, to take silver and gold, livestock and goods, to take great plunder?" In other words, the objection comes: your real reason is not noble. You've come to take control of the wealth, the oil and the gas. But that's all they do is object.
Right, so now comes the exciting part. What's going to happen, Derek, when they actually invade?
Well, it will seem like Israel's overwhelmed. But God is going to step in. And in fact, if you look in verse 14, God says, on that day when my people, notice he still calls them my people, Israel. God's going to fight for Israel. Will you not know it? He says, then you will come from your place out of the far north, you and many peoples with you. It says, you'll come against my people Israel like a cloud. I will bring you against my land. God says it's my land you're attacking. And then it says, God will get angry. Verse 18, my fury will show in my face. And he talks about the fire of his wrath. And then there will be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. And it says it will be a massive earthquake. And all the mountains, you know, everything will fall to the ground in this earthquake. And God is essentially going to totally devastate this attacking army. And it says there will be a sword against Gog throughout my mountains. Every man's sword will be against his brother, so they'll start fighting and killing each other in the panic. Then he talks about pestilence. There'll be diseases will break out in that army. There'll be bloodshed. I'll rain down on him flooding rain, hailstones, fire, and brimstone. So God's going to open up all his arsenal, essentially. And this massive earthquake and everything else that happens with it is going to devastate this invading army. And it will be so obvious that it's God who saves Israel.
So this is going to be some totally supernatural deliverance of Israel.
Absolutely.
And of course that's going to open up a wonderful opportunity for us to actually talk about fulfilled prophecy and preach the gospel.
Exactly. And so we need to know Ezekiel 38 and 39 so that we are ready to witness, because when it hits the news, you know, this will be the greatest opportunity we have to say, look, the Bible predicted this all the time.
Sure.
It will be a great chance for a revival.
So
Praise
can I
God.
just ask you, Derek, we're all aware of Antichrist lurking, waiting to come to the centre of the world stage. Is this possibly part of that?
It could well be, because that's a good point, actually, because when this judgment hits, it's going to shift the whole power balance. This could be a judgment that brings down many nations and many powers. It may bring down a certain form of Islam. It will humble certain nations, and this could create, as it were, a power vacuum for the Antichrist to arise.
Sure.
So I think, yes, as you said, it will be a game changer.
It will be a game
The political situation will shift, and it may well be the thing into the final arising of Antichrist. That's right.
So I'm sure you're very interested in what Derek's got to say. I'm very interested myself. If you've got any questions, do, this is actually a pre-recorded show, but do send emails to info@revelationtv.com, and I will forward them to Derek, and he'll answer them, I'm sure, for you. He has written a book about this, and he'll tell you about that later. Now, I'm very aware, of course, of the different times of the tribulation, pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib, and all the rest of it, and Armageddon. Where do you think this fits in with the pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib
Exactly, yes,
situation?
because people come up with, it's going to happen at the end of the tribulation. Different possibilities are it's happened already in history, but that's clearly not true.
No.
It clearly hasn't. Some relate Gog and Magog, and they connect it to the Gog and Magog in Revelation 20, that it will happen after the 1,000 years.
Right.
But although there's that matching of the names, everything else doesn't match.
Right.
The thing that I always turn to is the fact that there's going to be a 7-year clear-up operation.
Right.
After this, God intervenes, there's going to be a 7-year clear-up operation, and that's in Ezekiel 39. And it says... in 39 verse 9, then those who dwell in the cities of Israel will go out and set on fire and burn the weapons, all the weapons and so on, and they'll make fires with them for 7 years.
Yeah.
So part of the cleaning up operation afterwards will be a 7-year period. Now, it can't be at the end of the 1,000 years because we're immediately into the eternal state. There isn't 7 years to burn weapons. That would be silly. Neither could it be the Battle of Armageddon. Because if it was the Battle of Armageddon, what are they doing burning weapons for 7 years into the 1,000 years of Christ?
Yes, correct.
Neither could it be in the middle of the tribulation, because again, there's only 3.5 years.
left, yeah.
No, there isn't 7 years.
Sure.
And when the Lord returns, he'll renew the whole earth anyway. So it's either going to be right at the start of the tribulation, which just about gives you 7 years for this, but more likely it's going to be a few years before the tribulation.
Yes.
Because I don't see, because in the second half of the tribulation, it's so terrible, the Great Tribulation,
sure.
and Israel,
Yeah.
many of Israel will have fled the land anyway. They're not going to be doing this clearing up operation. So I think it's probably going to be a few years before the tribulation. In other words, in our time, in the church age.
I'm just going to give you a moment because I'm sure lots of people are very interested to know more about this. I believe you've got a book and a DVD you can tell us about.
Yes, and in fact, if we show the next picture, it will show the book.
Right.
And I've also done a 1-hour documentary DVD on this that's available.
Right.
If people contact the church, 01865 515086. So there's the book, and of course also the DVD.
Sure.
If you want to study it in more detail, because I do believe we need to be ready for this.
Well, so do I. I mean, I've read the book and seen the DVD. I think they're both excellent. They're different. They're slightly different. I don't know which I prefer, but I really like both of them, and I really think they're fantastic, actually. And we really need to get familiar with all this. I don't think a lot of people are. I wasn't familiar with all this until you brought it to my attention. I think people need to be familiar with all this and watch the events as they unfold in the Middle East, because this could, well be drawing up to, the big end time scenario.
Yes.
So, just to conclude, could you give us a sort of scenario of how things might turn out?
Well, let's take one possible thing. It could happen in a different way, of course. But we know the Iran situation and the nuclear threat from Iran. We know that Israel is not going to let Iran have a nuclear bomb. I don't think they will. And so we could see Israel doing a strike on Iran and taking out the nuclear facilities. Now, if that happens, that could be the catalyst for Russia to say, and with the support of all the nations with her, Islamic nations, say, we enough is enough. We've got to take out Israel. And that could be what will happen.
Sure.
And then when the big earthquake covers the land, we know that when Antichrist comes in, there will be a rebuilt Jewish temple. Right. So the Dome of the Rock has got to fall down at some point.
Wow.
Maybe that earthquake is what takes it out.
Yeah.
And maybe the breaking of the Islamic powers there and of Russia, which are supported by Russia militarily, then will allow a compromise to be made on the Temple Mount that couldn't be made right now. Sure. Israel couldn't have a temple now without starting a world war. But so it will shift the situation like that. So that's how I see it could play out.
Well, this has been absolutely fascinating to have Derek with us, and he's been talking about the imminent invasion of Israel. Now, you can get onto Derek's website, Oxford Bible Church. You can phone him. You can actually, I'm going to make sure that this particular program goes on my own website, freechristianteaching.org, and you'll be able to watch this program again. Thanks for joining us, and join us again soon for another program with Derek. God bless you.